Stop for a second and notice how much of your life is spent trying to make other people understand you. Think about how many times you've said, "That's not what I meant," or "Let me explain," or "I just need them to see where I'm coming from." You think you're just clearing up a misunderstanding, but what you're really doing is begging for permission to exist as you are. Every time you explain yourself, you are handing over a little piece of your power. You're saying, "Here, judge me, approve me, tell me that I'm allowed to feel this way, act this way, live this way," and if they don't, you bend, you soften your edges. You rewrite your story until it's one they're comfortable with, and deep down, you know it. This is why you feel exhausted after certain conversations. This is why your chest feels tight after defending your decisions to people who were never going to understand them in the first place. This is why you lie awake at night replaying arguments in your head, thinking of all the things you should have said, all the ways you could have explained it better. You're not actually trying to make them understand. You're trying to convince yourself that you were justified, that you had a right to choose what you chose, that you had a right to be who you are. But here's the brutal truth. You do not need their understanding. You do not need their permission. You do not need their approval. And the day you finally stop explaining yourself is the day your life begins to change in ways you can't even imagine. Carl Jung saw this coming long before most of us ever put words to it. He said that most people lived their lives identified with their persona, the mask they wear for the world. This mask isn't evil. It was built to protect you, to keep you safe, to help you fit in. As a child, you learned quickly which parts of yourself were rewarded and which parts were punished. You learned what was acceptable and what got you shamed, mocked, or ignored. And you hid the unacceptable parts. You pushed them down, locked them away, smiled for the world, and played the role they wanted you to play. But here's the catch. The mask doesn't just hide you from other people, it hides you from yourself. You start to believe the mask is who you are. You start to live for the approval the mask gets you. And then you spend the rest of your life explaining yourself every time. The real you dares to slip through the cracks. Think about the last time you said no to someone and felt the urge to "I'm so sorry, I would, but I've just been really busy. I didn't mean it that way. I just thought." Why do you do that? Because you are terrified of being misunderstood. You are terrified of being seen as selfish, cold, rude, lazy, ungrateful, whatever label your mind thinks they might put on you. But Jung would say that this fear isn't really about them. It's about you. It's about the part of you that still believes your worth is determined by how well you play the part. It's about the part of you that cannot stand the idea of someone being upset with you. And as long as that part is running, your life, you will keep explaining, keep justifying, keep begging to be understood. Now imagine what would happen if you stopped. Imagine what would happen if you made a decision, and when someone questioned it, you simply said, "Because I chose to," and left it at that. No extra words, no panic, no emotional tap dance to make them comfortable with your choice. At first, it would feel unbearable. You would feel exposed, naked, guilty. You would lie awake at night wondering what they must be thinking of you. You would want to text them, call them, explain yourself anyway just to relieve the tension. But if you resist that urge, if you sit in the discomfort, something incredible starts to happen. You start to feel free, because, for the first time, you are no longer living your life as a performance for someone else's comfort. You are no longer shaping yourself around their reactions. You are no longer at war with yourself every time someone misunderstands you. You are simply existing, And that is terrifying. Not just for you, but for the people around you. Because when you stop explaining yourself, you become unpredictable. They can no longer use guilt to control you. They can no longer argue you back into compliance. They can no longer make you doubt yourself by acting disappointed, and that scares them. Because your compliance made their life easier. Your explanations reassured them that you were still willing to play the role. When you stop explaining, some people will try harder. They will push. They will provoke. They will demand an explanation, accuse you of being cold or distant or arrogant. And here's the trap. They're not actually looking for understanding. They're looking for control. This is why Jung said individuation, the process of becoming your true self, is so rare and so painful. Because the moment you start individuating, the moment you start breaking free from the mask, the world fights back. Not because the world is evil, but because your mask served them. Your mask kept them comfortable. Your mask made sure you stayed in the role they needed you to play. And when you take it off, when you stop explaining, when you stop giving them a reason to feel safe about who you are, you disrupt the entire system. You've seen this play out before. Think about the friend who finally set a boundary after years of being the nice one. The family member who finally said, "I'm not coming to the holiday dinner this year." The co-worker who stopped saying yes to every project and started going home on time. What happened? Did everyone cheer them on for finding themselves? Or did they get called difficult, selfish, disrespectful? This is why most people never do it. They would rather stay small, stay quiet, stay endlessly explaining, just to keep the peace. But you, if you're still here listening, you're not most people. You wouldn't still be here if there wasn't a part of you that is sick of living this way. Think about how much time you have lost explaining yourself. How many hours you've spent defending your choices to people who weren't even listening. How many days you've wasted trying to win back someone's approval after they misunderstood you. How much of your life you've traded for the illusion of being seen as good. And I say illusion because that's all it is. The people you're explaining yourself to aren't really seeing you. They're seeing the mask. They're seeing the version of you that makes sense to them. And no amount of explaining will ever make them see the real you. Because the real you is something you have to claim, not something they have to agree with. This is where the breakthrough happens. When you stop explaining, you stop chasing their understanding and you start standing in your own. You start saying, "This is my life. This is my choice. This is my path." And you say it without flinching, without softening it, without apologizing. It will feel like you are losing everything. You will lose people. You will lose roles. You will lose the comfort of being liked by everyone. But what you gain is far greater. You gain self-respect. You gain clarity. You gain a quiet in your chest that no one can take from you. And slowly, something else shifts. The people who remain in your life, the ones who can handle the fact that you no longer explain yourself, are the ones who truly respect you. They are the ones who don't need you to perform for them. They are the ones who can stand in the presence of the real you without flinching. That is when you start to taste real freedom. Because once you have felt that, once you have lived a day, a week, a month without explaining yourself, you will never want to go back. You will never want to trade that freedom for the false peace of pleasing everyone. And that's where part 2 begins. Because if part 1 is about taking the mask off, part 2 is about what happens when the world reacts. It's about how to hold your ground when the guilt sets in, when the pressure comes, when people start leaving. It's about how to step fully into your life without shrinking back into the person you used to be. But for now, sit with this. Sit with the idea that you do not owe anyone an explanation for being who you are. Sit with the discomfort, the fear, the freedom of it. And the next time someone demands you explain yourself, remember this moment and try something radical. Say nothing, smile, walk away. Let them sit with their own discomfort, because the second you stop explaining yourself, everything starts to change. The first time you truly refuse to explain yourself, you will feel it in your entire body. It's like a storm hits, and then a strange silence follows. Your heart pounds. Your mind starts screaming, telling you to go back, fix it, make them understand. It feels like you've done something wrong, like you've broken some unspoken law of human connection. And in a way you have. You've broken the rule you've been living by your entire life, that everyone else's comfort matters more than your own truth. You've shattered the invisible contract you signed as a child, the one that said, I will keep explaining, I will keep performing, I will keep making sure you feel safe, as long as you keep loving me. So of course, it feels terrifying. This is the part no one talks about when they romanticize finding yourself. It's not just liberating, it's lonely, it's raw. It feels like being dropped into a dark forest with no map. This is why Jung called individuation a confrontation with the unconscious. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself to others, you're forced to face the one person you can't run from anymore, yourself. Suddenly, all the thoughts you've been drowning out with over-explaining come roaring to the surface. The guilt, the fear, the old shame, the questions you've been avoiding. What if they're right about me? What if I really am selfish? What if I really am difficult, lazy, arrogant, unlovable? You start to realize that all those explanations you used to give weren't really for them. They were for you. They were your way of convincing yourself that you were still good. And now you have to sit with the possibility that you are good, whether they say you are or not. This is where the real transformation begins. Because there's a moment, maybe days later, maybe weeks, when you wake up and realize you survived. The world didn't end because someone misunderstood you. You didn't collapse because someone thought you were wrong. Life kept moving, and so did you. And with every passing day, you grow a little stronger. You start to notice how much energy you have now, that you're not constantly spinning stories in your head, preparing defenses, drafting the perfect explanation. You start to realize that most of the people you used to explain yourself to never really cared about your reasoning anyway. They just wanted you back in line. You start to see the patterns more clearly. The friend who only called when they needed you to rescue them. The coworker who always forgot deadlines and then made you feel bad for not bailing them out. The family member who could guilt trip you into doing anything. You see them now, not as villains, but as people who benefited from your silence, and now have to face the fact that they no longer control you. And yes, some of them will leave. This part hurts more than most people are willing to admit. Because even when those relationships were draining, they were still familiar. Losing them feels like losing pieces of yourself. There will be nights when you wonder if you made a mistake. You'll want to call, apologize, explain one last time just to bring them back. But then you remember what it cost you to keep them. You remember how small you had to make yourself just to stay in their good graces. And slowly, you start to choose yourself instead. This is individuation in action, the process of becoming whole, even if it means being misunderstood. And here's where it gets even more powerful. When you stop explaining yourself long enough, you stop over-explaining, even inside your own mind. You stop justifying every thought, every desire, every dream to yourself. You stop running an imaginary courtroom in your head. Every time you want to do something new, that's when life begins to expand in ways that will scare you, because you're no longer waiting for someone else's permission to take up space. You start saying no without guilt. You start saying yes without shame. You start moving toward what you actually want, not what will get you the least pushback. And the world notices. Some people will resent this new version of you. They'll call you changed like it's an insult. They'll try to pull you back into old roles, remind you of who you used to be, but you will find that you no longer fit there. You can't. Because once you have tasted what it feels like to live without constant explanation, going back would feel like suffocating yourself. And this is where the breakthrough comes, the part that feels almost supernatural. The more you stop explaining yourself, the more magnetic you become, because confidence, real, grounded, quiet confidence, is rare. People can sense it when you're not defending yourself, when you're not trying to make them comfortable with your existence. It unnerves some, yes, but it also inspires others. Suddenly, people start coming to you, asking how you did it, asking why you seem so calm, so sure, so unshakable. You become a living example of what it means to stand in your own truth without apology, and then something strange happens. The relationships that do remain, the ones that grow with you through this process, become deeper, richer, more honest. Because now, you're relating from your authentic self, not from the mask. You laugh more freely. You cry more freely. You disagree without fear. You love without begging to be loved back in the exact same way. This is the freedom Jung was pointing to when he spoke of becoming who you truly are. But there's one final piece. You will have to forgive yourself, and this might be the hardest part of all. Forgive yourself for the years you spent performing. Forgive yourself for all the explanations you gave that you didn't owe. Forgive yourself for all the times you betrayed your own needs just to keep the peace. Because if you don't forgive yourself, you will carry bitterness into your new life. And that bitterness will make you want to explain yourself again, just to prove that you're better now. No, you don't have to prove anything, not even that you've healed. You just have to live. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Feel the panic rise in your chest. Feel the silence hang heavy in the air, and then let it stay. Let them sit with it. Let yourself sit with it. You will discover that silence is far louder than any explanation you could have given. And in that silence, you will hear something you haven't heard in years, your own voice. And once you hear it clearly, once you let it lead you, there is no going back. Because when you stop explaining yourself, everything doesn't just change, you change. You become the person you were always meant to be.